Okay, hello and welcome back. We are almost done with Errant Kingdom. We are about to start the finale for the Nomad. For Errant Kingdom. It's been a bit of a bumpy road between my personal life and the delay in finishing the game. It's taken a while, but it's so worth it. So worth it. So the Nomad was sent to the Winter Ball in Alduran with Raiden, courtesy of Afri, the Guildmaster of the Guild of Assassins. And if you've been following my live streams, you know what happens to Afri, but I'm not going to say anything about it just in case this is new. There's people who are only watching this route. So, the Nomad goes to Alduran, manages to steal an invitation from the royal palace. If you romance Raiden, whether with Lucian or not, you get a little distracted while you're trying to steal that invitation. But anyway, we do end up going to Alduran and breaking in and stealing some fine clothes. And you are attacked by Nazir, Masha's brother. And so, the ambassador and knight are like, I can't go back to the castle. But the Nomad doesn't live at the castle anyway. But still, I have to be sneaky about getting back to Novus. So, that being said, and do you remember that this Nomad is romancing Livia? I picked Livia because it's just kind of hilarious. To have the Knight Commander be romanced by the Nomad. I just thought the irony was delicious. So, here we go. Load game. The finale. Dun dun dun. When I wake up, I feel warm, safe, satisfied. My cheeks heat as the memory of what we did last night surfaces. This feels like a dream. But this little dream, this haven, has to end at some point. Raiden and I need to get the hell out of here before people notice we're not supposed to be hogging one of the carriages back to Novus. Shit. Livia is still sleeping soundly beside me, her long hair spread around her like a halo against the light blue sheets, her cheeks slightly flushed. The sight of her makes my chest ache. I try my hardest to be quiet as I slip out from under the sheets and quickly pull on my casual clothes. With early mornings comes clumsiness, and as one of my shoes tumbles to the floor and hits the tile with a thud, I drop my shoulders and admit defeat. I turn and find Livia sitting up in bed, her eyes narrowed in a deathly glare. Definitely not a morning person. Sorry, go back to sleep. You were going to slip out without waking me? Without saying goodbye? I think that's why she's angry. The betrayal is evident on her face. I quickly join her on the mattress, taking her hand and bringing it to my lips to press an apologetic kiss to her knuckles. You just looked so peaceful. Didn't want to disturb your well-earned rest. She doesn't look entirely convinced, but I think I'm off the hook. Very well, but you're awake now, so I expect a proper goodbye. I think I'm awake now. The pain of knowing I have to drag myself from her for the next 12 hours or more is pure torture. Yeah, because at least with Raiden, he's sneaking out with you. And, Rue, you're gonna see later, but, Livia lives in the castle, and you don't, so when are you next gonna see her, especially given all the hoopla that's going down? Besides, I thought the carriages aren't leaving for a few hours yet. I I offer her a guilty look. It isn't quite that simple for me, you know that. Right, of course. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Oh, my heart. Yeah, I deliberately avoided playing through these particular romance routes on my own because I wanted at least the romance scenes to be new to me. She leans and presses her forehead to mine, her eyes drifting closed. That floral sweet scent floods my senses. Swear to me that you'll be safe, Nazreen. I cover her hand with mine. I swear. I hope that we can see each other soon. If I have anything to do with it, we will. Get one final look at her, press one final kiss to her lips, and then I slip away. The journey is long, but somehow too quick. The closer we draw to Novus, the more my anxiety grows. Going back after rebuking the Queen and King and Noboth is like anticipating walking through the gates of hell. So much of my time since my journey to the crossroads has been spent trying to navigate this upended world. I've grown attached to the people, to the land, and I'm scared about what lies ahead for us. I shake off the feeling. Raiden and I are once again accompanied by Lucian on the ride home, and the demon has their nose buried inside that all-important little red book. They hum every now and again, scribbling notes on a pile of parchment they have handy as they flip through the pages. Raiden is snoring loudly, his head on my shoulder. I'm pretty sure he's drooling on me, but I'm too distracted to care. It's indicated in the trip to Honduran that Raiden is not a morning person. Considering what he does at night, I'm not surprised. Then, as if they sense my little internal crisis, Lucian slams the book shut loudly. Raiden jolts upright, his fists in the air like he's about to fight someone. I pat his thigh to calm him down. Do you fucking mind? I thought we were under attack. Lucian pointedly ignores him. We need a plan. What kind of plan? Lucian opens the book and flips to a random page somewhere in the middle, pointing out a specific paragraph with the tip of a sharp talon. Based on the information the triplets gave you, as well as what's written in this, it's quite clear that we're going to have to find something hidden deep within the castle. Potentially in the archives, but more likely in the throne room. Callisto said we're looking for a weapon. Wouldn't that be in the armory? Raiden grins wickedly. So what you're saying is, royal armory heist? Raiden. I shudder at the thought of it. Possibly, but I doubt there's anything of much use in there. Raiden's shoulders slumped. I guess. From what I've seen, it's just full of a bunch of old weapons and armor for the knights. Don't think I've ever seen anything that holds tremendous power. If I did, I'd have stolen it by now. He would. Callisto did say that the weapon would be old. Lucian shrugs. When Raiden said old, he meant in the useless rusted sense. Trust me, Nazreen, if there is something of value in there, I would know. Adri would know. You've seen the guild armory. Not even Adora and Thaddeus keep their battle armor in there. Then what? The throne room? That would be my best bet, yes. It's arguably the most guarded place in the castle besides the royal bedchambers. Though I'm sure if you ask me nicely, I might be able to convince Masha to help me take care of the wards. Screw your wards, you're clearly forgetting that I'm the best breaker and enterer this side of everywhere. Ah, Raiden. I coo at him, trying to placate his little tantrum. Aw, Rang, we didn't forget, but you sure as shit can't deal with the wards now, can you? He frowns a little harder. Could if I wanted to. Sure. Anyway, they know how to handle him. They do. This mission is terribly important, Nazreen. There's a serious undertone to their words. It's not like I'm not already aware, but hearing Lucian get like this, the fun part will be getting past the guards and those big fancy doors. I'm guessing you've done it before? Somehow he did, yes. They have to be unlocked with two separate pieces that combine to form one. It was easy peasy. Uh-huh. I would not... If I had done this route first, I would have believed him. No, I wouldn't have, because this is Raiden. Lady Death had a hell of a shock when she walked in and found me on the throne. I've never run so fast in my life. It's truly a marvel that you're alive and intact. Yeah. Lucian snaps their fingers at us. Focus, shadows. Oh gosh, this is so much fun when you're romancing the two of them together as a nomad. I may be able to help with the guards, but the key, Lady Death, as Raiden so lovingly calls her, has one half. And the other Lady Death has the second part, right? Adora? They both nod. Shit! Right? Getting Basile's part won't be an issue, but Adora is another game altogether. I happen to get very lucky the day I tried, but she keeps it in her chambers. They sigh and sink a little deeper into the plush cushions. I may have to move kingdoms after this, but leave it to me. Nothing like a little face and identity change can't fix, right, Lucy? The perks of being a mortal being, I suppose. I mean, Lucy would have to move kingdoms eventually anyway. Well, with that decided, the next question is, when the hell are we doing this? I don't know how long we have. A shudder runs through me as I think about my encounter with Nazir. Clearly, this is time sensitive. Part of me wants to say the second we get back, but surely none of us are prepared. Oh no. I shake my head and take a deep breath. I think it needs to be sooner rather than later. It's clear that Novus is getting power, but Nazir wasn't foolish enough to let anything slip in terms of timing. Of course not. He's not the spy master for nothing. The fact that you live outside the castle walls will likely unnerve them. Unlikely? Brain, where are you going? They have eyes everywhere, but you're not quite so easy to keep track of. I think that will cause them to hasten their plans. But yeah, that is a good point. At least with the ambassador and the knight, the king and queen could keep their eyes on them because they lived in the castle, but with the nomad, they live in the village, and not for that long. Like, of the trio, the nomad arrived most recently in Novus. The knight had been there for a while, and the ambassador maybe a couple days before everything went to shit. Give me a week to plan the break-in. We can speak to Atri when we get back. Excuse me, and get Layla on board too. A week. Both sounds like too long, but not enough, all at once. A mischievous glint sparks in Lucian's eyes as they lean forward. Do you think once we move the weapon from its place, there'll be a perilous course of obstacles for you and Nasreen to pass through in order to escape? Ooh, maybe. Raiden claps, bouncing in his seat. Like that one time that witch set her flying goat on me after I stole her merkin. Her what? Raiden gleefully launches into a story that involves the words pubic wig, and I immediately feel my eyes glazing over. You know what? I think I'm okay with just not knowing. Suit yourself. Despite my relatively unserious plotting partners, the plan still seems to be coming together. Gives me an odd feeling of comfort. Yeah, Raiden and Lucian, kind of feed off each other. Of course, Lucian as a demon can afford to be irreverent and a little not serious. And Raiden is just a little shit. I'll do my best to come into town and reconvene with you beforehand as well, to make sure we're on the same page. Won't that be too public? Don't you worry about that, Nasreen. Alright then, let's meet in 5 days at the Crown. They both nod. Lucian hands me the little red book while Raiden sighs and slumps against the cushions. Pages 14 to 23. Read them. The tale of Sir Ewan's sword begins as most fairy tales do. Once upon a time, there was a boy who dreamt of becoming a knight to fight for his noble queen. He worked tirelessly to try and join the ranks, but he was born into a poor farming family. This didn't stop the young sir. He roamed around the forest that surrounded his fields at night, fighting made-up foes with wooden sticks fashioned into makeshift swords. One day, during one of these walks, he came across an injured stag. The boy knew that the stag could feed his family for the next week, but as he got closer, he realized that the injury wasn't grave. He helped the stag, but the animal wouldn't leave Ewan alone. The boy decided to follow it wherever it seemed so eager to lead him. They reached a gnarled tree that had a large hole in the middle, the kind Ewan would usually find birds' nests or other animals in. But as he peered into the tree, he saw something shiny. Without hesitation, he grabbed it, and a blinding light burst from the center of the tree. Much to Ewan's surprise, the great stag began to talk. It told him that the sword was only wielded once in a generation, that it only revealed itself to those pure of heart and destined for greatness, like the kings and queens of old. The stag told him he would one day become a great knight, and when he was old, he would marry the princess that would then become his queen. In the years that followed, Sir Ewan fought many monsters, married the princess, and eventually became one of the greatest kings Orantis had ever known. Sir Ewan took the sword with him into every battle, hailing it as his talisman of fate. I closed the book and trailed my index finger along the spine of it. You know, that sounds a little like our King Arthur story, but less complicated. A far-fetched tale, maybe. If weirder things hadn't literally happened to me, maybe I wouldn't be able to see some truth in it. A strange feeling of finality settles over me. I let myself doze off for a while, taking advantage of the brief reprieve my brain gives me to recuperate from the exhaustion that's plagued me since last night. Well, you did, have a little fun in between, too, so... Ellipses. And I wake up a few hours later with Raiden violently shaking me. Wake up! Last stop before Novus. We need to sneak out. I look around, bleary-eyed. Where's Lucian? Went to distract some people while we make our grand escape. A true comrade. We step out of the side door of the carriage. Nobody pays us any attention, the majority of the convoy all taking the opportunity to stretch over by a small river on the other side of the line of carriages. We do well at not drawing any attention to ourselves as we slip away, heading for the thick forest that lines the edge of the kingdom. I see the castle in the distance, a hazy vision up on the high hills of Novus. My stomach churns. Raiden nudges me, tugging at my sleeve. Come on, time to go home. I nod, following him into the trees. We walk for about an hour before we stumble upon a river, which Raiden eagerly gets a drink from, filling a tiny hip flask that's definitely made for alcohol. I stare at him as he drains it in 2 gulps and refills it. He does that at least 5 times before I speak. Raiden? Yeah? Why don't you just get a bigger flask, one that's actually for water? He looks at me like I just stabbed him. Because it won't fit in my pocket? Duh! I snort, eyeing his very tight trousers. Maybe if you wore pants that weren't so form-fitting. We hear a rustling coming from the trees in front of us, and I tense, but Raiden seems incredibly unbothered as he moves to refill his stupid little flask one more time. And there, in all his knightly glory, is Eric. He's holding the reins of a horse and eagerly trots over to the river to join Raiden for a drink. All right, mate? Glad to see you made it. How did you get here before us, and also, why? As happy as I am to see him, I have no idea what's going on. He shrugs. Got on one of the first carriages, plus I walk faster than him. And the why? Raiden and I agreed that it felt a little precarious to have you wander in the forest without more backup. So you're the backup? He taps the pommel of his sword over his shoulder. Correct. Well, thanks. Means a lot. Don't mention it. He gestures back towards the tree line. Rue made a new trail for us to follow back to my cabin, though thought it would be best if you stayed with me rather than at your place. Again, strength in numbers. Plus, anyone from the palace really doesn't like dealing with me. And plus, his place is out in the woods. And so, makes it easier to tell when someone is sneaking up. Though, Shadow could probably deal with anyone attacking, but still. Change up your routine. Good for you. Raiden winds his arms around Eric's chest from behind, pulling him into a bear hug, his chin on the ex-knight's shoulder. Our very own little palace guard deterrent, aren't you? Alright, get off me. Come on, let's get moving before it gets dark. We wait for the horse to finish drinking, and Eric slips it an apple before grabbing the reins. We're going to have to ride together. Stealing another horse from the convoy would have looked a bit suspicious. This will be cozy. Shotgun! I want to sit in the front. Eric sighs deeply. Fine. Nazarene, you're at the rear. That poor horse. And just... Even if Raiden and the Nomad are lighter, there's still 3 people on 1 horse. That's gotta be a strain on the horse. Fine, not like I have a choice, apparently. Raiden snorts loudly. I guess I will behind Eric without too much hassle, winding my arms around his waist so I can death grip his shirt. A regular horse isn't exactly a comfortable fit for 3 grown humans, but this one seems particularly sturdy. Of course, Eric would have a horse just as beefy as he is. Okay, yeah, if the horse, plus, like, war horses are trained to wear all that armor and stuff, so I suppose it can handle 3 humans, especially if it's not wearing the armor, just a regular saddle. But I'm still just, are you sure? I mean, 2 people is a bit of a, shouldn't be too much of a problem, but 3 people, yeah, I'm just like, really? Giddy up! Eric grunts and taps the horse with his heels, and we're off. We only stop twice, to stretch our legs, drink some water, and give the horse a small break. The sun has set by the time we get back to the cabin, the forest alive with the sounds of the night. Rue is outside waiting for us, looking relieved when we trot into the clearing. They coo at the horse, taking its reins and leading it to its post to tie it up. You made it! The 3 of us jump down, and Rue immediately bounds over to us, giving the 3 of us a series of affectionate cheek squeezes. That's Rue. Thanks for making a safe path for us. Their smile widens, sharp teeth pressing softly on their bottom lip. Was the least I could do for my favorite people. Shall we head inside? Think we have some things to discuss. I nod grimly, and Raiden gives me an encouraging shove towards the steps to the cabin. Now, if you romanced Eric, especially if, even if you romance him with Maja, if you pick to go to him first, you've obviously already seen the inside of the cabin. But otherwise, nope, this is new. As soon as we get inside, Eric puts his sword away and gets the kettle on the stove. Raiden and I eagerly sink to the dining chairs to ease our aching bones. As much as I'd love to rest, I need to explain some stuff to you, I think. Eric and Rue look apprehensive, but I have their full attention. One of the triplets gave me a few pieces of important information. Reach into my pocket and pull out the precious red book. Lucian had slipped it into my pocket with a wink when I left the carriage earlier. Novus is using Adora and Thaddeus to upend the entirety of Orentis, and it's going to happen soon, but there's a way we can stop it. This book mentions the sword being used to thwart enemies of Orentis throughout the millennia, wielded by heroes, pure of heart, kings and queens, etc. Eric crosses his arms, his head shaking. That's the tale of Sir Ewan. It's a children's tale. Right, a tale. But Callisto mentioned an important weapon hidden within the castle. If what she said is true, that could be our best shot at stopping Nova. We think it's probably in the throne room. Eric runs his hand over his face, taking a deep breath. I know that room like the back of my hand. There is no special ancient fairy tale sword in there. But it could be hidden? Eric comes thoughtfully, then rolls his eyes like he's admitting defeat. Alright, fine. Say the sword does exist. It's nearly impossible to get to the throne room, let alone sneak into it. I did it once, but the conditions were much looser. Also, Livia almost killed me. Don't want that. Rue shakes her head profusely. Lucian said they and Maja will take care of the wards, and we need to get one of the halves of the key from Livia. I clear my throat. Which I might be able to help with. Yes! Okay, you know that is unique. That's something I haven't seen before when the skip button goes dark like that. So definitely as if you hadn't noticed before. Definitely something I haven't seen before. Considering she's quite fond of me. Eric scoffs. The other piece of the key is in the queen's bedchamber. That's where Raiden and myself come in, I guess. Once we get the key, we'll head to the throne room, grab the weapon, and get the hell out of there. Lucian is going to try and meet us at the Crown in 5 days to make sure nothing's changed. Eric runs a hand through his hair and gives an exasperated sigh. I still fail to see how a sword, however old, is going to help when we go up against a literal god. He has a point. The odds are stacked against us, there's no doubt about that. But to give up definitely isn't in my nature, nor is it in his or Raiden's. Or any of us, for that matter. It's not like we have any other options. Yeah, pretty much. I press my hand to my chest where Ungrath's mark lies. I don't control what help I get from Ungrath. It's selective, but he admitted that he doesn't have the power to stop Novoth alone. Rue's hands flutter in a rare show of nervousness. I wonder if they're thinking about their discussion with Eleanor. It'll work out. It has to, but only if we all work together. They force a soft smile. I can talk to some of my kin. I know I'm unusual amongst my kind in Errantus. Despite what my sister may think, our way of life is also threatened. Nothing sounds worse than living as a tree for the next few hundred years. I mean, that sounds pretty bad to me, too. And I'm not a fae. My heart sinks at the thought of someone as bright as Rue being trapped like that. Raiden winds his arm around their shoulder and tugs them close. We'll never let that happen to you, okay? They pat his hand gently. I think we'll need all the help we can get. We should all get some rest. I assume you'll need to report back to Adri soon? Raiden nods, his gaze catching mine. They expect us by morning. Right. Nazrin can take the bed. Come on, you two. You know where the spare sheets and pillows are. You just been snuggling with me, didn't you? Eric groans as he stands, clearing our empty mugs. Very cute. Get the fucking sheets. Raiden places his hand to his head in the perfect mockery of a knight's salute. Yes, Commander. I love a sleepover. Kinda wish we got something similar as the ambassador or knight. Raiden and I have the fun task of updating Adri the following morning. We recap the tale of the triplets and the encounter with Nazir and Nomad, and Adri listens with a startlingly calm expression on their face. It's both extremely unnerving and also kind of reassuring. See, this is the symbol that was on that card that Callisto gave you to give Raiden. He also has a similar tattoo, but it's got flowers entwined with it as well. Can't really tell because of the design, but you can kind of see that there's a tattoo there. The three of us stand and wait for them to say something else. Layla looks about ready to attack anyone. Yeah, this is, Layla is the one, she's the one who ends up with Livia, if you don't romance Livia. Raiden shifts from foot to foot, his eyes widening at me as if to say something else, say something else. But then Adri finally speaks. I will take great pleasure in removing Nazir Olenka's head from his shoulders the next time he dares to be within reach of my blade. And I'll gladly play catch with it when you're done. I'm sorry you had to deal with this, Nazrin. You and Raiden were far more merciful than I could have been in such a situation. It wasn't like we had much of a choice, he just kind of disappeared. Yeah, exactly. Didn't get a chance. Umgrass Mark served a great purpose. Adri nods once, clearly proud of their favored god's assistance. Yeah, before Umgrass bestowed their mark on the Nomad, they had bestowed it on Adri. And so Adri sensed when the mark left. When the mark was removed from them. Oh, and I never noticed this before, but it looks like Adri has a version of that tattoo. I'm sure it would have caused too much of a mess if That's not how you spell pursued. This should be a U. Pursued him at such an event, despite his own clear disregard for the setting. He has always been a slippery bastard, but to pledge himself to Novus in this way, that isn't something I ever thought even he would stoop to. Whatever happens, I'll stand with you. The whole guild will. Just name a time and place and we'll be there. Yeah! Woo! So got the guild on our side, gonna have the fae on our side. The next few days pass by in a blur. I, for the most part, just hang around the cabin. Everyone is restless and anxious, and I can't blame them. I have my very own sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach at all times, and I can't help but think about what my companions' lives would be like if this hadn't happened to me. Who else would have been chosen by the gods? A Vithrian knight, an ambassador, maybe no one at all. Again, acknowledging the other two routes. So cool. Thinking of all the what-ifs makes my brain hurt, so I try not to think at all. I wake up early on the 5th day of my little cabin vacation. Today is when I'm supposed to meet Lucian at the Crown. The nerves in my stomach refuse to settle, and I impatiently hover around the cabin so much that Eric eventually begs me to sit. And then it's time to go. It's easy to forget the purpose of tonight's outing as Eric and I make our way through the well-worn path into town. In another life, maybe, I'm simply going to drink to a hard day's work and enjoy Nemesis' death glares when we stick around too close to closing time. As I push the door open, something is immediately off. I blink, trying to see if it's a trick of the mind, but the crown is completely empty. Save for Masha, that is, who sits at the table in the middle, her cloak swathing her in deep blue. I wondered if it was gonna be Masha or if they were gonna stick with Lucian. Her gaze flits between Eric and I almost apprehensively. She looks a little odd for depth, despite the fact that she's been here before. How much did you have to pay Nemesis to let you empty out the place? She shrugs, all coy. Enough. Now sit. We have a lot to discuss and little time to do so. The chairs scrape as we take our seats. We were expecting Lucian. Please tell me that the plan is still moving forward. She gives a nod, but I can tell the answer isn't quite so simple. It is, but preparations have been slow. The task may be a bit more challenging than we anticipated. How? The Queen and King have been extremely erratic. They no longer hold council meetings and only emerge from their wing of the castle when absolutely necessary. I wouldn't put it past them to suspect something. They've effectively pushed me and Libya out. This doesn't shock me, but it's still difficult to hear all the same. I'm curious, and you don't have to indulge me, but have you seen Nasir? Only glimpses. He doesn't leave their Majesty's side. There's a sadness in her voice that makes something in my throat tighten. I'm sorry about him. Thank you. I'd like to say we were closer, but that hasn't been the case for many years now. Glance over to Eric, who just looks pained. His fingers twitch like he's itching to hold her hand. Oh, baby. Even after spending the night with her after the ball, which I'm assuming happened regardless of whether you were with them or not. He's still a little hesitant. Oh. Their eyes meet and she exhales, but she regains her composure quickly. I'm assuming acquiring the other piece of the key has proven to be difficult, like we suspected? You assumed correctly. With Libya being somewhat shut out, it's restricted our access. However, I have recently met with someone who may become a very useful ally. Let me guess. I know who it is, so I'm not gonna say it, but are you acquainted with Lady Silverleaf? I groan, sinking a little lower into the chair. Masha smiles sympathetically. We had a lovely little chat at the ball, yes. I think I managed to deflect the full force of her disdain. She was able to sniff out the Fae in me fairly quickly. Well, whatever you said to her may not have changed her mind, but it definitely nudged her in our direction. I shake my head. I can't take credit for that. It was all rude. I think I spoke to her after they had a rather heated conversation. There we go. For a moment there, my brain had trouble processing what I was reading. She knew about my mark. I could tell that she was less than enthusiastic about our odds, and she encouraged Rude to be careful. Ah! I don't know why, but sometimes I just keep randomly hitting the wrong button on the mouse. I do that in other games too, but they don't always affect my gameplay. Rue mentioned that they would talk to other Fae. I wouldn't be surprised if they talked to their sister as well. Masha takes the information in with a slow nod of her head. In any case, I think she might have changed her mind, or maybe her bond with Rue is stronger than we realize. She offered to lend assistance should we require any. And given that she has a proclivity for stalking around the castle undetected, I thought she may be of some use in retrieving the key. Now, as for the rest of the plan, once we obtain both parts of the key, the next hurdle is opening the doors. They're particularly large and loud. It will be very hard to do it unnoticed. I wouldn't worry about that. Raiden has apparently snuck into the throne room once before. I'm not sure how much of that little story I believe, but we'll cling to it if it's one of our only small slivers of hope. Masha rubs at her temple, looking a little frazzled. So, are we gonna reassure her or say we're all doomed? One sec. I forgot to grab my bag of dice. But I'm not gonna use it here because we're gonna be optimistic here. I know his methods appear to be unorthodox even for an assassin, but he really is good at what he does. I'm met with deafening silence. Are you sure you want to say this to Maja of all people? I'm also quite good too, by the way. Ungrat thinks so anyway. Yeah, because that's reassuring to us. Look, if Livia can handle the guards, I think we have this in the bag. She does still has control over the guards, but getting them away from the doors will be incredibly difficult. They're especially trained to stay at that post for long stretches of time, and they need to stay within eyesight of them. Livia might be able to get them to focus on her, have their backs turned for a moment for you to enter, but she isn't loud enough to cover the sound of the doors. Though I'm sure she could certainly try. Don't mind me, just messing around with dice. Could I just make a really loud noise? A loud noise. I don't know, weather magic, a really loud storm, something that rumbles. Eric and Maja look at each other. My vaguely stupid idea seems to have struck a chord. I mean, if it works, it's not stupid, right? A bit of thunder never hurt anyone. You could also use it as a signal for them to get out if they need to. I suppose it's a less elegant plan than I had envisioned, but I think it should work. And if all of that goes well, we'll find Sir Ewa's sword and get the fuck out. I still think putting all of our hopes on a children's tale being true is a little idiotic. There are always lessons in those tales, Eric. Sometimes it's difficult to pick up on that as a child, but I always focus on the more fantastical stories. Oh gosh, why didn't this occur to me before? But it just reminded me of Brave, when Eleanor is telling Merida about their history. Telling her about the king who had 4 sons and basically told them to didn't divide. I wouldn't say he divided the kingdom amongst them, but he basically told them to rule together after he passed. But one of the sons, the oldest son, was prideful and wanted to rule the kingdom himself. And so the kingdom fell to ruin. And Merida's like, that's a nice story. I know, and her mom's like, it's not just a story, it's a lesson. And it turns out there was truth to that story. So yeah, that's where I'm going with this, is that Maja is right. There is a crumb of truth in that story. Sir Ewan was the greatest king of all time. I don't know. There may be someone coming along later who may give him a run for his money. Now you'd sound like Liv. She loved that tale, didn't she? She used to look in any tree with a notch in it just to be sure there wasn't a sword inside waiting for her. Oh, she'd be mortified. Oh, that's adorable. Yes, of course. The thought of her so vehemently believing in such a fantastical tale really tugs at my heartstrings. I sigh. Being away from her has been hard. Yeah. And she's going to kill us for telling you that. Yes, she is! That was my first thought. Masha seems to detect my solemn mood and reaches over to rest her hand over mine on top of the table. She misses you too, Nazreen. I had to practically lock her in her chambers when she found out I was coming instead of Lucian. Oh, my heart! I snort. Of course she wanted to come, no matter how ill-advised that idea would be. I've apparently made her lose her sense of mortality a little. Not mortality, I'd say morality. She's always been a romantic at heart. I look at Eric and Masha at the love they still so clearly hold for each other. This gentle, subtle, but inherently pure kind of love. I offer them both a pointed look. It would appear that she had a great role models when it comes to romance. Ah, I love this! This is so cute! Masha's laugh is magical, and Eric's cheeks quickly heat as he averts his gaze. There's hope for them yet, I think. They both clear their throats in tandem. Oh my gosh. My parents have been together almost 45 years. It's 44 years this year. No. Wait. Yeah, 44 this year. 45 next year. And we went on a boat trip a couple weeks ago. And they just sat together and held hands. And we stopped at In-N-Out for lunch afterwards. And they ordered the exact same meal, right down to whether they wanted onions on their burgers or not, and what kind of soda they wanted. The rest of us ordered something different, but they ordered the same thing. Anyway, if this plan fails, then we just regroup and form a new one. I won't lie and say I have complete confidence in this, but I trust Nazreen. Ah, stop that. I know you do too, Eric. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. And quite frankly, we don't really have much else to go on, so if the shot in the dark is a sort from a children's story, so be it. Very well then. I cast him a suspicious glance. You believe it then? Just like that? No. The concept still sounds incredulous, but that doesn't matter, not where you two and your determination is concerned. Thank you. Oh, before I forget, I have a message from the triplets. Everything inside me recoils at the mention of them. I shudder. She reaches into her cloak and pulls out a tarot card. No fucking way. On the card is a woman holding 2 pitchers of water beside a lake. The star. So, the same card, regardless of who the main character is, whether it's the ambassador, the knight, or the nomad, it's the same card. So it just means they're on the same tab. So, I may do a quick bad ending playthrough, not on here, off stream, and then and I was planning to read some codex entries, so when I do that, maybe show the slides for the bad endings as well. The star at the top of the card in an elegant script is one word: hope. There's a sudden loud knock on the door, and I assume it's Nemesis telling us our time is up. Masha sighs as she stands. I must get back before anyone realizes I'm missing, but I'll be waiting for you 2 evenings from now. Come to the castle with Raiden as the clock tower strikes midnight. We'll be there. Thank you for everything. She waves me off with a smile. Eric and I both stand to leave, and as I make my way to the door, I notice he doesn't follow. Nazarene, I would like to speak to Masha for a moment. Alone, please. I smile and nod my head before giving them their privacy. As I step out of the tavern, I swear I can see him reaching for her hand. And if I notice his flushed cheeks and kissed red lips when he finally meets me outside, I don't say a thing. I find it hard to sleep the night before our mission. There's so much at stake that whenever I close my eyes, all I can see is the various ways it can go wrong. Silly, really, as someone who does this kind of stuff for a living, but this job is a little grander than I'm used to. The worry leaves little space for relaxing, or sleep. Just as the moon is about to reach its peak in the sky, Eric bids me a nervous farewell, and Raiden meets me outside the cabin. Ready to do some crime? You notice that Raiden didn't have to bring any gear for you to wear, because you're a shadow too. Though he probably may have snuck your stuff out of your place in the city. City, village, whatever. Where you were living before. Always. Time's so wasting. We have a fancy sword to steal and limited hours of moonlight. I nod, feeling the adrenaline starting to kick in. Let's fucking do this. Here goes nothing, I guess. Raiden and I are experts at traversing this particular path by now, as we slip through town and the grasslands surrounding the castle with startling ease. We count the steps for the guard patrol and pick our favorite spot to climb up onto the perimeter wall. And so we climb. The throne room is located at the lowest level of the castle, where the pathways and corridors narrow the closer you get to it. As we approach the corner near the final set of stairs, we both stop in our tracks, hearing something up ahead. Raiden's brow is pinched as he listens for a moment, then relaxes. It's done. He nods. Maja and Livia meet us around the corner. The look of relief on their faces is clear, but both of them also look incredibly tired. We made it, and right on time, too. I see Livia's fingers twitch around the pommel of her sword when she looks at me. Hi. Missed you. I missed you, too. I can tell we both long to say more, to reach out and touch, but now is not the time. Sadly not. But, oh, they're so cute that they're both like, once but can't. The magical wards have been taken care of, but they'll need to be put back before too long. Normally, that would be my job, but I wouldn't be so foolish as to assume there aren't others monitoring it. I will go before you to give you time to slip past the guards. Lucian and myself will be supplying the bigger distraction up here. Loud bursts of thunder, only able to be heard on the lower level. Damn it, I can't remember if Livia joins Maja for every Nomad route, or if it's only if you romance her. I think it's every Nomad route. I'm impressed. Is there anything you can't do? Her nose crinkles for a moment. I've never quite gotten the hang of pinochle. Now go. Now I only know how it's pronounced because I've seen it used on The Price is Right. I think there's also a reference to it in the show Numbers. But yeah, I used to watch The Price is Right all the time. My sister, my twin, had a chance to go see a taping of The Price is Right, but she couldn't because she wasn't 21 yet. You need to be at least 21 to be in the audience, since they pick contestants from the audience. So that was kind of disappointing. Anyway, before I get distracted once again, the blatant honesty of the answer makes me laugh. It isn't long before I hear Livia, her stern commander voice in full effect. I'm here to do a routine inspection of the area. You will accompany me to point out any potential weak spots. There's a quiet murmuring from the guards. As their voices fade, Raiden and I push onward. I could just about see the corner of Livia's cape where she stands down a parallel hallway, stationed so that the doors are within her eyesight. She grants us a quick glance and gives an almost indiscernible nod. We turn left down yet another hallway, and we finally reach it. I'm amazed at the grandeur of the doors. This is the first time I've really gotten a good look at them, and their size and intricacy are both distracting and worrying. Shit, they're huge. Reach up to place my hand on it, and it's cool to the touch. Excuse me. And then it hits me. Raiden? The key. He stares at me for a moment, clearly processing what I just said, and when it hits, his eyes widen. I thought Livia was supposed to give you her part. She was, but the second half is... and cut off by a smooth, melodic voice. Let me guess. Of course, I'm not going to actually say it, but I'm sure anyone watching has a good idea. Shadow? My cat's name is Shadow, so for a moment I thought she was saying his name. But yeah, we got him on Halloween about 5 or 6 years ago, and so we named him Shadow. And the funny thing is, he loves to play with shadows. He will chase shadows on the floor, he will jump up and attack shadows on the wall. So, and he likes to follow my dad around, so we call it shadowing him. Because the cat's name is Shadow. Anywho, the sudden materialization makes us both jump. We cling to each other like frightened children. Eleanor arches a perfect brow at us, her eyes roving over Raiden in a scrutinizing sweep. Her dainty hands hold up a red ribbon with a fully formed key attached to it, and she gently drops it into the hand I hold out. Thanks. She inclines her head. It's impossible to get a read on her, but when the corner of her mouth ticks upward, I decide to take it as a positive sign. I will admit that when Rue came to me, I was disappointed they hadn't come to their senses. But I do admire their determination, and their faith in you has impressed me more than I care to admit. You have Fae blood in your veins, Shadow. I'm sure you know well, but my people are selective with whom they share themselves. Yeah, because it's one thing to just dally with someone, but to actually become close enough that you have kids with them, that's significant. I've decided to cast my lot with you. The outcome makes no difference to me, but it does for the one being in this world I care for most. That being, of course, Rue. Round us a low rumble fills the air. Good luck. In the blink of an eye, she's gone. The key looks deceptively simple. It's old, a little rusted, and certainly doesn't match the grandeur of the thing it unlocks. Finding the lock on the door is another tricky feat. I assumed it would be in the middle, at eye level, but that's not the case. Okay, so this is why I was grabbed my dice. So I have a D2. It has a 1 on one side and a 20 on the other. Well, technically it's not a 20, but I know it's supposed to represent 20. So 120. Where'd it go? 20. Figure it out yourself. I also have a bigger one, but I like the other one. You'd think we'd have this part figured out, but the door perplexes me beyond belief. It's then, while staring very intently in the hope that it will reveal its secrets to us, that I spot something. Oh! Oh? Point at a tiny, insignificant square. If you look close enough, it's slightly discolored. I poke it. There's a click, and it opens to reveal a tiny keyhole. I like that. I poke it. Poke, poke, poke. I'll let you do the honors. Take a deep breath and push the key in. The rumbling overhead starts again and gets louder. I have to move quickly if we're going to take advantage of Maja's brilliant distraction. Gently I turn the key and I'm afraid to look, but I feel the lock give way. Just as a loud clank starts to echo, there's yet another booming clap of thunder. Raiden pulls with all of his might and it groans in protest as we slip inside, closing it gently behind us as the thunder fades once more. In the silence I realize that we're both holding our breaths. Holy shit. We really did it. As we traverse into the depths of the room, it grows eerily cold. We push forward, our focus lying straight ahead. I turn and see the look of pure awe written all over Raiden's face. What is he looking at that could possibly... Turn my head and gasp. Off to the side there's a cabinet, and I'm not sure what exactly I expected to find. Money, probably, with the occasional sword. But this is something different altogether. Glittering gold necklaces and crowns fitted with the largest diamonds and jewels stand in one section, and another is a dragon's sword's worth of gold. The room doesn't seem to be as big as the doors would suggest, possibly due to the fact that much of the space is filled to the brim with valuables. It seems kind of odd to have it in the throne room, but I guess, since it's a door and patios, I like to look at their wealth. Raiden's fingers wrinkle at his sides, and the desire to pilfer something, even if it is a single gold coin, is incredibly strong. I swallow loudly. Right, let's focus. I hear him whine, and I stifle a laugh as I drag him forward, keeping a hold on him. I spot quite a few weapons, an axe, a gnarly-looking mace, a few embellished daggers. Out of one pile of coins, I see a bejeweled pommel and rush towards it. Whoa, do you think that's it? I curl my fingers around the hilt and pull. It's long and tapered, lightweight and beautiful, but... I shake my head. There's not a single scratch on it. We're looking for something that's been used over several generations. Put it back on the pile with a defiant hug. We spend the next few minutes searching in different directions, trying to cover as much ground as possible. The seconds tick by, and with each passing moment, I start to worry. It has to be here. I refuse to think of the possibility that it isn't. I try to keep my ears open for Maja's signal, just in case we need to drop everything and leave. Raiden's side's on the other side of the room. Found anything? Plenty, but no magic sword that'll save humanity as we know it. Sorry. Time is running out, and there's so much in here. I feel as though we'll never find what we need. I turn my head to look at a portrait on the wall next to me. Strangely low to the ground, the edge of the frame almost bumping into a sword. A regular, boring, completely unremarkable silver sword. Ray? I reach out and tug at his belt. He frowns, but then he finds what I'm staring at and grabs my arm. You don't think... I take a deep breath. Something tells me that this is it. Call it gut instinct. We both lean forward and inspect it. The craftsmanship is painfully simple, but still clearly high quality. The shine of the sword is somewhat dulled, and if I look at the blade, there are noticeable scuff marks. I reach my hand out, pausing just before I get to the hilt. Please, please let this be it. My fingers wrap around the cool metal, only to be met with white-hot pain the next moment. The insignia on my chest glows so brightly underneath my leathers that the light breaks through. I hiss at the pain and pull it away so quickly that the sword clatters to the floor, mocking me. Fuck! Nasreen, shit! His eyes widen when he spots me clutching my chest, the light fading slowly. Can't believe you found it. Are you okay? I nod. The pain is already starting to fade. I have an itch right in my ear, under my headphone. I'll be fine, but let's get the hell out of here. He tears a piece of cloth that another weapon is wrapped in and carefully picks the sword up, looking very much like he's expecting it to injure him too. Seems to do the trick though, and we quickly make for the doors. I press my ear to the wood and I can faintly hear Olivia continue to give instructions to the guards in the distance. I hear one of them yell as thunder booms once more. It's time to go. The door swings closed behind us with a loud whoosh, and I let Raiden handle the lock. My hands are still shaking from holding the sword, my chest aching dully. We retrace our steps. Livia is still situated at the conjunction of the hallway, and as we pass by, Raiden goes his hand over her shoulder, hanging the key off one of the ridges in her armor. Livia only raises her head, not risking another glance at us, and we start our ascent up the stairs. Maja and Lucian usher us into one of the ambassador chambers, and she stares at the wrapped sword in Raiden's hand with wide eyes. Is that it? It has to be. My mark glowed when I grabbed hold of it, and it fucking burned me. Lucian looks slightly frazzled as they carefully take the sword from Raiden. They gesture at me with a nod. Turn around. They press it against my back, over my leathers, and they and Maja work in tandem to strap it to me tightly, freeing up my hands. Just like with the ambassador. It's different with the knight because the knight wears swords, wears sword belts. Though why they couldn't have bothered with the sword belt before, I don't know. You know, I think Adri would love some more pairs of deft hands at the guild. I'm not cut out for the life of a rogue, Nasreen. Raiden is already dangling off the windowsill and he beckons me over with a hand. Maja gently pushes me towards the window. Try not to linger here. If I've timed the perimeter patrol correctly, you should be able to leave the same way you came in. I take Raiden's hand and let him pull me out onto the trellis. Time to get the hell out of here. The second our boots hit the ground, Raiden rolls on me and grabs me by the shoulders. You alright? You look pretty shaken up back there. Not shaken up, just shocked. I'll live, I promise. 'Tis just a scratch, right? I smile. Exactly. Now come on, we shouldn't hang around unless we want our heads chopped off. Raiden snickers, but the sound of a patrol guard's heavy-booted approach quickly silences us. We basically don't slow down until we reach the clearing that houses Eric's cabin, the sword feeling a lot like a target where it rests upon my back. Eric is waiting for us, sitting on his porch looking impossibly tense. When he catches sight of us, I watch his body release all of that tension, his face a picture of relief. You made it, and in one piece. He narrows his eyes briefly. Right? We did, and guess what? He spins me around so that Eric can get a good look at the sword. We got the fairy tale sword! How do you know it's the one? I wiggle my fingers in his face. They're still slightly burned. The little ship burned me for a start, but also my mark got all glowy. I gesture vaguely at my chest. He responds with a contemplative grunt. I can see his fingers twitching like he very much wants to reach out and touch, just to see. I'll be inside. Weird. Anyway, I have to go and report in with Adri, let them know we survived and stuff. Good job tonight, comrade. Right back at ya. He steps backwards, saluting me as he goes. So, yeah, there was some rocky ground at the start with these two. Partially because Raiden's not sure if he can trust the Nomad, which, fair. They meet at the beginning of the story. Like, literally, he's the first person you meet as a Nomad. And, he doesn't know much about you, just that you're from Vithris. So, naturally, he's a bit cagey. But, you do kind of move past that and become friends. Though, of course, if you flirt with him, there's definitely some tension there that's, yeah. Relieved. Anywho. It isn't until I'm inside that the adrenaline finally begins to wear off. Eric has already gone to bed, the sheets tucked right up to his chin, so all I can see is the display of his hair against the pillow. I quickly shed my clothes, carefully placing the sword on top of the highest cabinet in the room. I give it a glare before I head to bed. I slip under the sheets in a little makeshift bed I've crafted for myself on the floor and contemplate my day. As I stare up at the ceiling, I can't help but wonder about Eric's reaction to the sword back there. Figure he's probably just stressed from worrying about us all night. Close my eyes and sleep finds me quickly. When I wake up, I quickly realize that I slept through almost the entire day. Then a head of bright red hair pops into view above me. You're awake! Shit! Language! I run a hand over my face and groan loudly, willing the light and sound to go away. This feels like a killer headache. Please tell me I didn't sleep for multiple days. No, just a majority of 2 days. You still look really tired, though. I feel really tired. I don't even think death would bring me enough rest at this point. The sweet face contorts in concern. Psst, don't say such things. I sigh and drag myself out of bed. The following days passed by in a blur, a distinct restlessness lingering around all of us. Raiden goes back and forth between the guild, insisting I'm not needed and that I should just chill. That alone is enough to unnerve me. I'm not used to sitting still. Rue paces around the perimeter of Eric's cabinet like they expect something to pounce out at them at any moment, leaving little trails of wildflowers behind them as they go. I love that little detail, that reminder that they're Fae. Ultimately, it's hard to wait for a sign when you don't really know what you're looking for. One thing we are doing with all this time is preparing. Audrey has assured us the assistance of the guild. Masha has been busy with producing protection talismans and potions, or it's all to take this weird sparkly one each night that tastes a lot like feet. Gross. I also haven't missed the new Fae faces that have been appeared in town at Rue's request. They'll continue until we can't anymore. It's an unassuming day, the same as most here in Novus, a cool and refreshing breeze, fluffy clouds, the sun high in the sky. But if you look a little closer, squint just right, a tiny gray dot above the tall spire of the castle. It could easily be mistaken for a rain cloud, maybe a wisp of smoke, but then it starts to get bigger and bigger. It becomes an angry swirl, darkening the sky above the castle before it soon spreads over the rest of Novus. Eric and I stand on the porch, craning our necks as we stare at the sky, stuck in place. The air noticeably cools as the shadow crosses over us. I don't miss the way he rolls his shoulders, squaring them up. Reflexively, I do the same. Well, I guess this is it. I nod. My throat feels dry when I speak. Guess it is. We quickly get ready, strapping on our armor and savoring what will likely be the last quiet moments we'll have for a while. Maybe ever. I attach the sword to my back with Eric's help, and it isn't long before Rue finds us, bringing with them this crackling, distinctly Fae energy. I look towards the forest to see glimpses of many, many peeping eyes, and Raiden has promised to meet us at the castle with Adri and the rest of the guild. A loud boom of thunder rolls over us, the air smelling strongly of ozone and metal. With an assertive nod, Eric starts for the castle, and I follow. I've been in plenty of sticky situations, some life or death ones specifically, but there's a strange stillness here today. Quiet that unsettles even my relatively unshakable nerves. Eric looks determined and steady, and I know that this feeling is merely second nature to him. He's a warrior before all else. Yep, that's what he's trying to do. I need a little of that mentality. The town surrounding the castle is desolate. It seems that everyone has wisely boarded themselves in their homes, urged by the choking feeling of dread that seems to seep into the atmosphere. Lucian meets us before we get to the outer walls, genuine concern gracing their features. It somehow makes them look startlingly human. They're rounding up the nobles and locking them in the east wing. I felt that it was the right time for me to take my leave. God forbid they locked you in there, too. They could try. Yeah, and the ambassador route. all the nobles are rounded up when there's an attempt on the king and queen's lives, which, interestingly enough, that's never actually addressed. Anywho, and Lucian magically creates a doorway elsewhere in the castle and slips out with the ambassador. And during the night route, when the knight wants to speak to them about getting in touch with Raiden, they magically create a door into Livia's briefing room, and then a door into the chapel from there. So yeah, there's no door that can keep Lucian locked up. Where are they? Oh wait. They could try. My stomach clenches. I start to ask where Maja and Livia are. Barrick is one step ahead of me. I haven't finished reading that. Where are they? He looks fierce as he addresses Lucian, his fist clenched. His voice wavers just a little, and he's too good at this to truly betray a sense of calm. But it's clear their safety is foremost in his mind right now. They're safe, for now. Livia gave herself the very important job of keeping an eye on Maja. It placated Adora and Thaddeus enough to give them the time to sequester themselves in Maja's atrium. We've been there. The ambassador and the knight both visit Maja there after visiting with Telenios or Knidros. And if the Nomad picks Maja, the Nomad also visits there. Just needed to stretch. Now at once, his face softening slightly. We both knew Maja and Livia are more than capable of taking care of themselves, but having them with us would feel so much better. Truth. Soon enough, Raiden and the guild arrive. I turn to see him, Layla, and Adri with a small but sturdy-looking group gathered behind them. Yeah. You're the Nomad is the only one that calls Layla by name, because the ambassador and knight don't know her name. Layla is she, her pronouns. Remember that. Adri's face is inscrutable as always, but they offer me a small smile. What's the story? Nothing yet, just big cloud. I can feel the eyes of everyone fall upon me, waiting, and I realize that they're looking to me for instruction. Take a deep breath and step closer to Raiden and Eric. Raiden and I have a plan to get us inside. Lucian informed us that Adora and Thaddeus have been letting go of most of non-essential staff over the last few days. Only a few servants remain in the kitchen, the Queen's handmaiden, and just a few others linger in the castle, all under the watchful eyes of guards. There are servant tunnels that lead just about everywhere, and now they're deserted, which means not much surveillance. There are some certain exit points, but I'll be taking care of those. Distractions are my favorite. Their sharp teeth shine as they grin, and Lucian wiggles their fingers excitedly. I turn to Eric. We've been holed up long enough that we've plotted out various plans, trying to account for any obstacles that we could. He knows the castle like the back of his hand, and I trust him far more than I trust myself when it comes to infiltration. Yeah, because the Nomad may be a shadow, but Eric grew up in that castle, basically. He clenches his jaw for a moment and nods, stepping towards the center of the circle our group has formed. We'll need to split up and secure the castle in as many areas as we can. Ensuring the safety of Nazarene is the priority. Splitting up into small mixed groups, and 2 or 3 will be the most efficient way to spread throughout the castle. Lucian, where are Adora and Thaddeus? The chapel. The doors are sealed, and nobody is allowed in or out. Nazir is stationed in front of the doors. I groan. I don't particularly want to face him again. He's powerful and cunning, surely one of the larger threats we'll face. Eric doesn't miss a beat. I'll go with Nazreen. I would like Raiden and the Viper to accompany us. Adri laughs. My reputation precedes me. Please, Adri will do, sir. Raiden is nearly vibrating with excitement at the prospect of working alongside both Adri and Eric. Layla can take a small crew and head for Masha and Livia. Bring them to the chapel to meet us. Rue and the Faith Folk will be stationed outside for extra protection. I have a feeling we'll need it. Oh yes. Whatever Adora and Thaddeus are doing obviously needs to be stopped. They've got a god on their side, the most powerful one in the Pantheon, who will stop at nothing to get what they want. Spare lives where you can, but be prepared for a dirty fight. Adora has the ability to peer into minds to speak to you telepathically. Thaddeus is able to manipulate feelings and emotions. They're both incredibly dangerous, so be on your guard. I clench my fists. Good luck, I guess. With that, everyone disperses to their designated posts. What I like about that is there's a specific effort to tell people stay alive, don't kill if you can avoid it. Because the thing is, everybody here, most of the people in the castle, most of the guards, there's no telling if they're doing this of their own free will or if they've been manipulated into it. And yeah, normally, I hate the defense. I was just following orders. But in this case, it's entirely possible that they were misled somehow. Usually in cases where people are like, oh, I was just following orders, they could very well have not followed orders. They could have protested or reported something. But in this case, I mean, they're the king and queen, and they have the ability to manipulate emotions. So they could easily manipulate people into doing their dirty work. So that's why it's important to avoid killing people whenever possible. I turn around and Eric, Adrian, and Raiden are waiting for me. It's time. We begin our journey through the gardens with startling ease, and Raiden knocks me with his shoulder. Nice speech back there. I feel galvanized, inspired, ready to fight a god even. Raiden? Ray. I snort at their tandem scoldings. This may be the most backward form of family bonding I've ever seen, but it's endearing how happy Raiden is right now, despite everything else. Eric and Raiden stay close to me as we walk, with Eric leading the way. I try not to think too much about what's waiting for us at the chapel. That place has always filled me with a terrible sense of unease ever since I first met Maja there. I still remember the chilling way the statues regarded me. The closer we get, the heavier the sword feels where it's strapped to my back. I watched those ahead of us split off, weaving between pillars and statues, getting into their positions, and soon we're the only ones left. We stop before the archway that leads us to the chapel. I think back to the first night I met Raiden. This is where traitors come to die. Eric looks at me and I don't see an ounce of nervousness in him. I wonder what that's like. I'm sure he must feel worried for Maja and Livia, but he's clearly practicing the art of hiding it. Every part of me is on high alert. I know there's no turning back now. The air around us noticeably grows colder. We all stay terrifyingly quiet, years of practice under our collective belts. Across the courtyard I hear the now familiar clang of Livia's armor. I hold my breath until she comes into view, Layla and Maja following closely behind. They look somber but unaffected. Livia quickly finds us and nods curtly, ever the professional despite the stakes feeling so personal. They'll wait for a signal before proceeding. You don't have to look at Eric to feel a shift in his energy. His eyes don't leave Livia and Maja, but he says nothing, only straightening his shoulders a bit more. This is not the time to go running and embracing people after they're done, after the fight. There's a faint sound of drumming, a low thrum that I mistook for my own heart thrumming in my chest, but now I realize it's coming from the chapel. It's a heartbeat, though. A deep, dark sound that sets my teeth on edge. The word ominous springs to mind. I place my hand gently on Eric's shoulder, silently telling him I'm ready, and we slowly walk towards the chapel. As if tethered by an invisible string, Livia echoes him, their movements perfectly in sync. In a different world, I would be fascinated to watch the two of them work together, but for now, I just focus. There are 2 guards stationed at the entrance of the chapel, fully-fledged knights, free from the nerves present in a new recruit, and they regard Livia with mistrust that's nearly palpable. I need access to their majesties. Apologies, I'm under strict instruction not to let anybody in or out. Well, your commander is on you to let her in. These orders are from the queen herself. Correct me if I'm wrong, but last I heard, she outranks you. I see Livia's shoulders stiffen, but before I can blink, Eric moves his stand beside her. He's swift but quiet, clearly surprising the guards as he approaches. I think it's in your best interest if you listen to your commander, recruit. The guard bristles at the obvious disrespect for their rank. There's a slick metallic sound as Eric unsheathes his sword. The guards don't hesitate, drawing their own weapons, and I can see the conflict on Livia's face. These are her men, the ones she's sworn to lead, to protect with her own life, if necessary. Until now, I haven't really thought of the emotional cost of her having to fight them. Eric is quick to send the guard he was fighting to the ground, knocked out cold with the pommel of his sword. Livia follows suit, seemingly at a loss of what to do next. The assassins spring into action then, pushing us towards the doors. Layla steps forward. Go ahead. I'll handle them. Livia nods, granting her permissions, and looking incredibly grateful to be at least somewhat separated from that particular moral conundrum. I put my hands on the cool stone door of the chapel, my fingers trembling. The sword on my back seems to buzz as if it's alive, and with a deep breath, I push the door open. Part of me assumes I might open the doors and find Adora stirring a bubbling cauldron, or maybe something far more nefarious and bloody, but what I find is infinitely more disturbing. This is not the chapel I'm used to, but instead an illusion, one of Novus making, from what I remember seeing back in the crossroads. Everything is bathed in a sickly green glow, the ruins of a long-forgotten castle serving as a backdrop to where Adora and Thaddeus are perched in front of an altar. I can't see Nazir, but I'm sure he's somewhere close. On the altar itself is a chalice, some runes crudely carved into the stone below. The two of them have their eyes on me, and neither of them look exactly surprised nor thrilled to see us. The way Adora's lips curl at the corners makes something cold and heavy sit at the bottom of my stomach. Well, well, if it isn't the prodigal shadow. Her words are as cold as ice. I steel myself for the sensation of her voice invading my mind, but it doesn't come. They've done away with most of the inhabitants of the castle. I guess she's able to speak freely now. I watch her gaze flit to the pommel of the sword strapped to my back that peeks over my shoulder. So you managed to find that old piece of metal after all. I'm mildly impressed. Her face turns cold, her mouth contorting into a sneer. Now, give it to me. I cock my head in faux contemplation. No. I don't think I will. Thaddeus clears his throat and an insincere smile on his face. Darling, it won't do any good to make demands like this. The sewer dweller has been a valuable asset to us so far. It does no good to burn bridges now. What you're witnessing is the start of a new age. For so long, we've been preparing to usher in the return of Novus. Soon a new dawn will rise over our great kingdom. He points to the sword. What you carry is the key to Novus, well, to our success. Give it to us willingly, and we can promise you power unlike anything you could possibly imagine. Beside me, Eric exhales sharply. I look at Nazir as he appears seemingly out of nowhere, curling his fingers around the pommel of his own weapon. So you notice there isn't an opportunity to reason with them like there is with the ambassador or the knight. So, going to roll a dice. Same one as before, 120. So here we go. 20 again. Over my dead body. Despite the tension in the air being thick enough to cut with a knife, a laugh bubbles out of me. I look behind me where Eric and Olivia stand, and I think of the other people that believe in us, that risk life and limb outside. The idea that we would come this far for me to just give up is absurd. Sorry, your majesties, but if you want this, you're going to have to pry it from my cold, dead hands. This was under your noses the whole time, in the throne room, no less, and I guess where I figured it out. A book of children's tales. Imagine being outsmarted by a sewer dweller. Dora looks positively furious, launching herself up and taking a step towards me. Her ink-black hair looks frazzled, and when she gets closer, the bags under her eyes are far more pronounced than I've seen before. That can certainly be arranged, you insolent fretin! Thaddeus takes a deep breath, and I feel calming tendrils of warmth begin to curl around my ankles. Adora whirls back around, voice growing louder with each word. Enough of the peacekeeping, Thaddeus! I have had enough of this lowlife traipsing around our kingdom and mucking everything up. I can see the king's jaw clench, his fist curling in tight at his sides, but he makes no move to argue. Seemingly satisfied, Adora faces me once more with a disturbing maniacal grin on her face. Nazir, you know what to do. With a curt nod, Nazir stalks towards us, drawing his weapon. Instinctively, Eric begins to move, but I see a swirl of green push ahead of us. I'll handle this. I've heard many things about your skills, Spy Master. Let's see if you're as good as the whispers say, once and for all. So cool. Obviously, this is much more personal in a way for the Nomad than for the Knight or the Ambassador, because the Nomad has a chance to get to know Adri and speak with them, and plus, especially if they're romancing Raiden, there's that special connection, and Adri does give you a shovel talk if you romance Raiden. Seeing Adri in action is a sight to behold, never staying still for longer than a brief moment. I hear the biting metallic sound of blades clashing together, and in them I see the same fierce and cunning that Raiden possesses. With Nazir distracted for the moment, Livia and Eric push forward towards the Queen and King. I follow behind them, pausing as I hear the rumble of armor outside and the cries of guards as I see our allies posted outside the chapel. Adora and Thaddeus watch us close in with amused looks on their faces. Our weapons are lowered, but they seem entirely at ease. Surely they have weapons on them as well, but they make no move to reach for them. Adora hones in on Eric. What an odd collection of people you've surrounded yourself with, Shadow. Even arranged a little family reunion. How quaint. I'm sure you've missed your beloved Archmage since we exiled you, sir. Eric snarls and Livia's brow furrows, her hand gripping her sword tighter. Your destruction of Novus ends now, Adora. The Queen raises a brow. I'll admit, I never anticipated you returning from that little excursion we sent you to alive, Nishram, but it seems you're far more of a nuisance than we anticipated. Livia's eyes widen, shock coloring her features, and on Eric's face is pure rage. You what? Adora rolls her eyes, tone cold, then mocking. The fact that we fooled you wasn't something we were counting on. But it was seamless, everyone believing the beloved Knight Commander slaughtered his men in a fit of insanity? We needed you out of the way, and we accomplished that. Is that difficult for you to understand, Livia? Tears prick at the corners of her eyes, her nose turning red. I cannot believe I swore my life to you. Spare me the theatrics. What we've set into motion can't be stopped. Novus is returning. The only thing to do now is decide what side of history you'll be on. She gestures to the altar where the runes give off an undulating glow. Adora steps to it, raising her arms, Thaddeus behind her. Behind us, Nazir and Adri dance around each other, neither one quite able to get the upper hand. Novus! Return to your right place in Novus. Transform our gray and dreary world with your power, and bring in a new age. Dun dun dun! Suddenly a thunderous boom fills the chapel and the altar cracks. The ground shakes beneath our feet and the world goes black for a moment, stifling, suffocating thickness in the air. The brand on my chest burns and I cry out. In an instant the blackness dissipates and what I see sends ice through my veins. It's Novus, the same as they appear in all of the illustrations I've seen in the pages of the Pantheon studies. That cloying sense of doom once again fills my chest. Are we too late? The god takes a moment to bask in their new form, hands running over their arms and their chests. They turn their head as they survey the chapel, and we all still, including Adri and Nazir. The Queen and King fall to their knees before the god. Thank you, my loyal pets, for doing what so many before you failed to do. They look at me now, turning slowly. Ah, the little Vithrian, this unassuming pawn has become quite important, it seems. And you've delivered that sword so beautifully for me. Novus steps towards me and I stumble back. It's near impossible to think of anything but the pain, but I have to push through. I choke out the only words my mouth will form. Fuck you. Novus laughs, a sick noise that sounds like bones rattling together. What a bold little shadow you are. They draw nearer to me and my mark surges with pain. I sink to the floor and Novus grins, stalking nearer. Close my eyes and feel a shadow cover me, and the fear that grips my body makes my throat close up. This is it, isn't it? The end. I hear the steps get closer, and I take a shuddering breath in, bracing myself for what comes next. Don't touch her! My eyes fly open, and I look up to see Eric between me and Novus. There's a quick beat of silence before the god's face contorts in rage. You, the noble knight, the one my puppets failed to vanquish. They whirl towards Adora and Thaddeus, who shrink back at the furious energy rolling off of them. Taking advantage of the brief distraction, Eric helps me to my feet. The pain in my chest starts to ebb away, and I begin to focus on what's happening before me. Thaddeus swallows thickly and lowers his head. He hasn't been a problem. Silence! Imbeciles! First you failed to have him killed to eliminate the possibility of him interfering, and now he stands here before me on my day of reckoning? I told you how his bloodline has always served to cause problems. Plans foiled every time, my body unable to become flesh. Dora and Thaddeus cower, and the Queen has a look of panic on her face. Novus turns towards us. I knew I would have to take care of things myself. The god lunges towards us, and Eric throws his weight into me, pushing me out of the line of fire. I roll away just before Novus reaches him, and Nazir tries to follow, but Adri intercedes. Their dance begins anew. Livia and Masha run towards Eric, helping him up. There's a whirl of blue as Masha hurriedly mumbles an incantation. Raiden is at my side in an instant, daggers drawn, Rue on his heels. I jerk my chin towards the traitor's couple, and Raiden nods. Novus is focused on getting to Eric, and we use that to quickly slink over to Adora and Thaddeus. The king draws his short sword, but Raiden easily deflects it and sends it flying out of his hands. Adora makes no move to fight, her pale skin sallow as her eyes don't leave Novus. I don't hesitate, pointing my dagger at her throat as Raiden holds Thaddeus in place. Explain to me why you tried to have Eric killed. Why is he important here? Slowly, Adora's eyes meet my gaze. I didn't take time to appreciate this last time, but they're so... I love this so much. The Nistroms are an old family, as old as Errantus itself, and as integral to its history as the goths themselves. Many of the older families claim to tie their lineage to the royal throne, but... She shakes her head and looks at Eric, where he fights in tandem with Livia, swiftly dodging the sweeps from Novus' long arms. There's king's blood in that one. It makes him dangerous. I thought exiling him would be enough. I snarl, pressing the blade of my dagger harder against her throat, a thin trickle of blood dripping down her pale skin. But what does that have to do with bringing Novus back? She laughs, cold and mocking. Do I have to spell it out? That sword is important, yes, but only in the hands of the right wielder. It gives you or I no more power than the little dagger you hold. But if held by certain individuals, it can bring peace, revolution, or ruin. There's a loud metallic clang as Livia is flung to the side of the chapel, her armor banging against cold stone. She gasps as the air is knocked from her lungs, but she shakes her head as Eric starts to go to her. Watching him turn to face Novus again, I realize something. I've never been the key. Not when Ungraf found me, not when Novus propositioned me at the ball. It's Eric. It always has been. The sword buzzes on my back as the pieces fall into place. Novus needs the sword to unlock his terrible power. That's the only way the god can succeed in the destruction of Errantus. But in Eric's hands, that plan crumbles. Raiden, take care of them. Tie them up somewhere they can't cause trouble. With pleasure. Why not just kill us? Save yourself the trouble. I shrug. If this goes wrong, we all die, so it's not like it matters. Maybe I'll change my mind. Who knows? I'd quite like to see you in a dungeon, though. Dora moves to protest, but Thaddeus puts a hand on her arm, stopping her. Very well. Go, Nazarene. We've got this. I move as fast as I can around the edge of the ruins, trying to avoid the falling debris shaken loose by Novus as they attempt to strike Eric down. Masha's face is screwed up in concentration as her magic catches the larger pieces, setting them down gently before they can do too much damage to anyone of importance. She looks at me, her eyes darting over me to see if I've been hurt. Point to the sword and then to Eric, and she nods. Adri and Nazir are still locked in battle, but they're slowing down. Nazir has a cut on his cheek, Adri on their arm and their side. Raiden keeps stealing glances over to them, worry coloring his features. I'm almost near Eric when his sword is knocked out of his hand. His back is pressed to the wall of the ruins as Novus closes in, reaching their large hand down towards him. Before they touch him, there's a loud thud as a chunk of stone hits the god squarely in the chest, knocking them backwards. Masha is buying me time. I don't let myself get distracted now, sprinting towards Eric. The skin on my knees burns as I slide in next to him and unsheathe the sword. Take this. Eric's hands instinctively reach for the hilt before I've even said anything, but he flinches back, clearly unsure. Novus wants this. I don't want to give them the opportunity to take it. Grab his hand and wrap his fingers around the pommel. I'll explain later. Just trust me, yeah? Eric's jaw clenches, but he nods, adjusting his grip on the sword. He gets up and swings it experimentally, and I can tell that it's balanced perfectly for him. It's essentially an extension of his own arm. Despite the circumstances, I see the corners of his mouth lift upwards, and his eyes shine a little brighter. He was made for this. The rain debris on Novus has stopped, and they whirl around, bellowing a noise that makes my ears ring. It's full of rage and desperation, like a wounded animal. Everyone freezes, clutching at their ears to protect from the sound. Maja crouches beside Livia, helping her up. On the other side, I see Nazir lying motionless on the ground, and Audrey panting beside him. There's a silence, then another sickening noise. It's a slick, wet sound that I realize is steel slicing through flesh. My head whips around, searching for the source of the noise, and when I hear Raiden's guttural scream, I know. No! Audrey's eyes are wide with surprise as they look down, their fingers trembling as they slide against the tip of Nazir's blade, where it peeks through the center of their chest. Behind them, Nazir clutches their shoulder, looking like he's on the verge of death himself. His breathing is heavy, blood dropping trickling from the corner of his mouth. Audrey looks at Raiden and smiles, letting out a breathy laugh. Then they sink to the floor in tandem with Nazir, their eyes staring blankly at the sickly green sky. No! Ah! All at once the world crashes back into motion. Alerted by Novus' scream, a horde of palace guards comes pouring in, guild members and a large number of Fae hot on their heels to try and stop them. Lucian appears by Raiden's side as he sits motionless beside Audrey's body. They fend off any wayward debris or guard that comes near him, in between gently trying to get him to leave his fallen mentor. Yuru seems to materialize out of thin air. They hurry towards the Queen and King, stopping them as they try to slink out of the building, away from the chaos. Livia has a look of determination on her face as she flanks Eric, downing those who try to get in his way. Eric fights his way to Nova, the sword moving fluidly in his hands. I follow behind, clutching the dagger in my hand hard enough that my knuckles bleed white. The adrenaline in my body is holding up, and I barely register the shallow cuts I have on my hands and arms. I can only imagine the state my face is in. Thankfully, there are enough guild members in Fae to keep the bulk of the guards preoccupied, and I find a somewhat clear path skirting towards the back. Novus makes no movement as they wait for Eric to approach, leering down, taunting in the way they stay still, and somehow they seem to have grown in size as they first emerged. The closer we get to the god, the more the air feels like it's been sucked out of the room. It makes me feel lightheaded, and I feel my feet start to catch on themselves, but Eric doesn't seem affected. That sword. Eventually he turns back and looks at Livia and myself. He says nothing, only a small smile on his face. I gently touch Livia's back and see her swallow thickly, her eyes shining with tears. I know she's determined to keep from failing. If anyone can do this, it's him. Right. Yes. Another ear-shattering noise bursts through the chapel as Novus careens forward. They're fast, and I almost worry that Eric won't be able to dodge the movement, but he does just in time. It's hard to tear my gaze away, the horrible uncertainty of the outcome almost too distracting. We push through and find Masha, and soon Lucian and Rue come to us, guiding Raiden. He looks to be in a daze, eyes and nose red from tears. I send my hand out to him, and he takes it, squeezing hard. Eric continues to hold his own, but I know we need to act fast to finish this once and for all. Livia? I snap her out of her reverie and watch her blue eyes focus on me. We need Eric to succeed, but we need a plan. Her face transforms from scared and anxious and settles into something firmer, more determined. It's familiar, but not on her, and I realize that it reminds me of Eric. She nods, her jaws set. Our allies seem to have the attacking guards handled well, but make sure that you keep an eye on them, no matter what you're doing. Last thing we need is to be blindsided. Maja, how's your stamina holding up? Keeping that monster distracted with debris seems to be pretty effective. Maja, despite the scuffle and dust of battle, still seems to sparkle, but there's something behind her eyes that shows exhaustion beginning to creep in. I can see your tear marks on her cheeks. I can't even begin to imagine how she must be feeling watching her brother fall, even if he was fighting against us. Even so, her voice is strong and steady when she speaks. I'm all right for now, but Novus' magic grows stronger by the moment. They were beginning to push against my attacks. Hopefully, with everyone working together, they'll be too spread out to resist you further. Lucian, do you think you could help Maja? If you work together, your magic should amplify and reduce fatigue. Lucian's face is somber and serious. They nod. Of course, whatever you need. Rue, you and Raiden can serve as another distraction. You're nimble and quick and better able to avoid getting hit than I am. You can attack Novus at their feet. That should make them topple over. It's a simple plan in theory, but I know it's easier said than done. Rue nods eagerly, one arm around Raiden's shoulders. They softly knock their head against his. You okay to do this? Raiden sniffles. When he looks at Livia, his eyes burn. More than ready. Whatever it takes to kill this motherfucker. Once we get Novus down, that will give Eric the opportunity to finish it. Nasreen, you and I will help where we can. The more scratches we can put on this god, the better. Doesn't seem like much, but if we wear them down enough, it will help. There's a brief silence as we digest the plan. Wordlessly, the pairs begin to split away. I mean, if water crashes against rock long enough, it eventually reshapes it, so... Raiden and Rue sprint off to begin their task, and Masha and Lucian station themselves on opposite walls. Large pieces of stone and debris begin to fly through the air. Novus deflects the first two strikes fairly easily. Their strength continues to grow, the energy emitting from them becoming almost suffocating. Eric continues to fight, moving swiftly away from attacks and waiting for moments that Novus bends down to throw more vicious attacks. Suddenly there's a loud hiss, and Novus turns their head to look at their leg. Raiden has climbed up some of it, his dagger glinting as he draws it across the back of the god's knee. I wait a tense moment to see if that works, but the cut isn't deep enough to cripple them. Raiden jumps back down and begins to try the other leg. Rue only a flash of green and red as they try to cause the monster to tumble down. Livia and I draw closer to Eric, careful not to distract him. We chip away at what we can, stabbing at their arms when they swing near us, or their torso when they bend closer to the ground. We continue on for what simultaneously feels like mere moments and long hours. By finally begin to see the god slowing down. A piece of stone hits them, and they lurch, their balance knocked askew. Raiden makes another attempt at cutting through their legs, and this time he hits his mark. Novus screams, collapsing onto their knee. Black blood drips down, pooling onto the stone floor. Eric wastes no time searching forward, but access to Novus' heart and neck are just out of reach for him. The mark on my chest tingles, and my body begins to move. There's a piece of stone from the floor of the chapel that's jutting up, almost like a ramp. If Eric can leap with enough force, he can make it. I run toward him, and something deep inside me ignites, sending sparks throughout my body. Eric glances at me, and I point to the stone. It's only a handful of steps, and I reach him quickly, placing my hand on the back of his neck. The energy that flows through me begins to push outward, and I recognize it as Ungrass. It's been settled within me for so long that I've grown accustomed to it, and to feel it leave me makes me gasp. Eric tenses beneath me, grunting and shaking his head to right himself. I look down and notice that the mark has begun to fade. I lean in and whisper to him, "Finish this." Everything that happens next seems to occur in slow motion. Lucian and Maja use their magic to keep a large stone on Novus' back, forcing them to stay down. Rue and Rai continue to slash at their legs, Olivia focusing on the bent knee. Eric runs up the ramp, launching himself off the edge, sword angled high in the air. I can hear my heartbeat roaring in my ears as the sword plunges into the god's chest, black blood spurting out as Eric hits his target. The sword, buried in the god's gray skin, begins to glow brightly. Lightning-like veins extend from the wound, quickly covering every inch of Novus, who yells in pain, loud enough to make the floor tremble. Eric holds fast, keeping himself aloft by holding the sword. The glowing veins reach Novus' face. One last cry escapes them before it dies in their throat. They sway, clawing at their wound, their neck desperate, and with a loud crash, Novus collapses. The world around us shifts, and we're back in the chapel, the one we're all familiar with. It's deathly silent for a long moment while the dust settles. Eric wrenches the sword from Novus' chest, breathing heavily and stumbling back. We all watch, completely still, as Novus disintegrates into ash. There's a loud clang as the guards drop their weapons, and as I hear Adora scream in the background. I realize it's over. We did it. We won. I feel my knees give out from under me, my eyes filling with tears that I let fall freely. I dig my fingers into the dirt below, grounding myself. What do we do about the guards? They've made no move to continue fighting, but I see Livia walking away from Eric's side to address them. To your barracks. We will deal with you shortly. If you run, we will find you. Without a word, they obey, filing out of the chapel. Now to find out who were being seriously manipulated and who were helping of their own free will. Layla staggers in, looking relatively unscathed, but I watch her face crumble as she spots Sadri's body in the rubble. Raiden goes to her and they embrace, murmuring quietly to each other before gathering the rest of the guild member. Lucian stands watch, giving them space. Rue sprints over to the entrance of the chapel where Eleanor stands. She looks relieved, and Rue throws their arms around her, burying their noses into her hair. They stay like that for a long moment. Eleanor brushes Rue's short curls back and mutters something to them that makes them grin. Masha is with Eric, using a scrap of fabric from her skirt to clean some of the blood off of Eric's face. He stops her by gently grasping her wrist and pulling her in for a kiss. I try to hide my smile, but it's like witnessing something out of a fairy tale. Yes! The knight finally got his girl. The tears keep spilling over my cheeks and I wipe them away with a grimy hand. Something comforting and warm settles in my chest. It's almost foreign to me now, but I know what it is. Hope. Okay, I'll be right back. Need a quick break. Okay, I'm back. Alright. Now I get settled. It's clear that there'll be a period of healing here in Novus, so many ends left that need to be tied. Handling Adora and Thaddeus will take enough time, but who knows how the public will be affected after being betrayed by their rulers. The royal guards will need to be taken care of as well. Novus needs protectors that are loyal, an essential foundation for a better Novus. The guild will need a new leader in the wake of Adri's death, a unique challenge unto itself. And then there's me. Do I return to Vithris or resume my old life, or do I stay in Novus and help rebuild what was corrupted? There's great uncertainty, but underneath that, there's an energy that's found only in moments of rebirth and great change. Despite not knowing what the next step is for any of us, there are some truths that hold me steady. The citizens of Novus were kept safe. The world didn't end. I'm alive and have more scars to add to my collection to prove it. Even though I can no longer feel Umgrath's power, I know that he hasn't abandoned the city and its people. That's where Umgrath is he. Telenius and Knydros relay. Most importantly, the group of people that I care about are together and alive, and whatever comes next won't be dealt with alone. We have each other, and that's enough. In the aftermath of Novus' defeat, word of the battle and those who fought in it spread quickly throughout Orentis and its neighboring countries. A new ruler was needed to restore what had been taken from the citizens of Novus. The choice was unanimous among the members of the court to formally end the exile of Sir of Erknistrom and instate him as King of Orentis. Under his rule, alongside his queen and archmage, Maja, the kingdom flourishes in a way it has not since Eric's own ancestors sat on the throne. Relations with the Fae are more formally established, and the citizens of Orentis find themselves living in an era of great prosperity and peace. He also still attends the winter ball every year at the request of the duchesses. Upon seeing the success with which the Fae and humans worked together during the defeat of Novus, Rue works with Eric to ensure a harmonious coexistence between the cultures. They start by reconciling with their sister, Lady Silverleaf, showing her what humanity looks like through their eyes. The two still clash as siblings do, but sightings of the elusive Lady Eleanor are reported more and more by the citizens of Novus. She's been known to be partial towards passing sweets to children and sharing mulled wine at booths in the market. Rue becomes essential to bridging the gap between humans and Fae in Novus, becoming a unique sort of ambassador. It keeps them busy, but they continue to see their friends often. There's always a spot for them at the castle. In the underbelly of Novus, there is also a period of rapid change. As above, so below. When one viper falls, another rises, sharper and keener with the collective knowledge of their predecessors. There are hushed whispers underground that the moniker has changed hands, though it is only confirmed in a secret guild ceremony held under cover of darkness. The viper undoubtedly feared not only for his prowess and reach, but for the fierce loyalty garnered by the members of the guild. It becomes a sort of safe haven for those that were lost and broken. Bonds are forged beneath Novus without the fetters of contracts or blood debts. If there are rumors that the guild is given grace by those ruling Novus, they go unchallenged. Besides, Drayden never was one for tradition anyway. Livia keeps her duty to the crown and people of Novus to keep stability as the world reorients on its axes. When the new everything has settled, she steps down as Knight Commander to focus on something she hasn't had much time for previously: herself. Caught up in the frenzy left after Eric's exile, Livia stepped into shoes expected of her to fill. Always known as Eric's protege, she now makes an opportunity for herself to try something new. Unbound by titles, Livia begins a new chapter of her life, exploring the world and herself along with it. Some say that Shao stands by her side, one who knows real adventure, and they flourish together, hand in hand. That's obviously different because of romance Livia as a nomad. After demons reach a certain age, time passes and holds meaning differently than it does for mortals. Years go by like mere seconds, and the rise and fall of empires begin to bleed together. Lucian recognizes when it's time to move on, a gut feeling of sorts, a push and pull that guides them on their next adventure. But the people they left in Novus keep a special place in their heart, enough so that there's never too much time that passes between visits. There's wisdom to be given, especially to new and younger generations, and mystique builds around the intriguing visitor. Through the ages, a folktale emerges. A demon, beautiful like the night sky, once lived in Novus and befriended the mortals. They returned every so often to visit them, and when their times would come for them to return to the earth, Lucian could sometimes be found sitting by their graves in the light of a crescent moon. Adora and Thaddeus sit in the dungeons beneath the castle as they watch their work become unmade by the new king and his new court. When the smoke clears and the emergent matters have been attended to, the disgraced rulers face their reckoning. Their betrayal of Orontis must be answered for. The judgment is given without ceremony by King Eric, and the punishment follows suit. There's no crowd, no announcement. The king's sword is swift and sharp, and their final breaths end the reign of the traitor queen and king. Their legacy is one of betrayal and destruction, a warning to those who rule or seek power for generations to come. It's a beautiful day in Novus. It's also my day off, and I intend to make the most of it. I traverse the flower field. My fond memories of spending time here with Rue flood in my mind as the scent of the blooms flood my senses. Then I hear her, for I see her. Or rather, I hear her bird. Ha, so pretty! I love it! Ah! Savigny lands on her outstretched arm with a great squawk, his arms flapping horribly pleased with himself. His beady eyes zone in on me as I approach, and Olivia coos at him, smiling as he nuzzles her palm with his beak. I am not jealous of a bird. Nasreen, you made it. She whistles and the bird takes flight once again. I promised, didn't I? She snorts, quickly casting the sky a glance where Savigny circles above us. You did, but you are so very slippery. I roll my eyes and groan as I bend to take a seat in the grass. She huffs and joins me, her light armor clinking quietly. So, where's our next adventure? She hums, prodding my shoe with the toe of her boot. Not sure yet. I fancy somewhere a little colder this time, maybe? I freeze. If you say Alduran, I will cry. You are very dramatic, you know? I sigh, falling back against the grass with a thud before I grab her arm and pull her down with me. And you love me for it. That I do. Yay! That was perfect. So yes, going to the extras. I love her outfit. It's just the perfect mix of armor and The perfect mix of protection and mobility. There we go. But she's so fucking pretty. Okay, so that's it for today. My plan is to stream on Wednesday and go through some of the codex entries and read through those. And possibly, depending on if I find time to do the bad endings, to look at those. I won't give any hints as to how you get them, though. I'm pretty sure people could figure it out. But it's just an interesting exercise. So thank you for joining me. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And after I do the extras, then I will go back to doing Our Life Beginnings and Always, and playing the Derek DLC, because I really want to finish that. So take care, everyone, and have a good day. Bye.